We're going to get started. Chairman Jasper's got another committee meeting. He's trying to pass a bill out of judiciary. God bless him with all those attorneys. They all got to have their comments on his bill, so he'll probably be a while. We're going to start out, and we've got a lot of people going to speak today, a lot of the groups. I appreciate everybody being here and on time. We're going to start with the Senate. We're going to adopt our rules, which you've got in the books. They're basically the same rules as last year in the Senate. Do I have any questions on the rules at this point? Senator Jackson, do you like these rules? Is that okay with you? You are recognized. Okay, do I have a second? Second from PK. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. If we could only do all things that easy around here. Okay, we're gonna skip on the House rules for now until the chairman gets here.
Guess who's here?
And guess who's here? So here he is. So now I'll turn it over to him for a second here. That's maybe very quick getting out of judiciary. I'm very impressed with that.
Well, the Judiciary Committee was very kind to me, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it, but let me catch my breath just a second. But those of y'all who've been in Judiciary, I'll be very kind to them. They were very nice to me. But, since it's my first meeting, would just like to take a moment just tell my committee members and those in the Senate that it's really an honor, for me to be in this position. I look forward to working with you, addressing the needs of higher education in Georgia. I think if you ever look at anything I've written on my website and stuff, that I just know that education is the key, to our state's future. It's key to my families and all of my families. So, and I just appreciate it a lot. I've been involved in education in one way or another all my life. So I was driving down here this morning, so I counted 11 campuses and universities, colleges, and technical colleges my family has been to in the last 20 years. So we've invested our own skin in the game and have enjoyed it and benefited from it. For just a minute, I'd like to recognize some of our newer committee members. And where's Rhonda at? Rhonda, we're welcome. We're glad you're here. David Dreyer, right here. I just saw you in Judiciary. Just a minute. You're fast. Matt, we're glad you're here. Karen Mathayak, glad you're on this committee. And Rick Williams. And also myself. And did you have your other members introduce themselves?
No, I was waiting for you to come here, and then we were going to go. We just did our rules real quick to get them done.
Oh, I thought you'd been talking for a long time. Oh, my. Well,
I was waiting for Earhart to show up. He didn't show up.
He'll be here when he needs to. And also on our committee, we've got a great administrative assistant. I want to point out Diana Brooks. If you members haven't met her, she's over here. And we appreciate her up in our office. And our intern, Austin Kirk. I got to tell you about Austin. He's our Georgia Tech intern. This man knows wherever food is in this building at lunchtime. We count on Austin. Jeremy Airy, of course, is our legislative counsel, and our policy analyst is Sarah Arroyo. I think she's over there too. But and the only business we have committee on our House side is to adopt our committee rules. They're in your notebook or in your green folder. I hope you've taken time to look at them. There were no changes from the previous year, and I would entertain a motion to pass or adopt those. We've got a motion, a second? A second. Is there any discussion, any questions that we can answer? With not all in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So let's move on, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, at this point, everybody knows who the boss is. She's sitting on my left, Donna Neely. They all know that at this point. Valerie, our intern, is down here on the left. Valerie waved to everybody down there. Okay. Yeah. And I wanted to give you all some facts and figures before we start here today, because I think it's very important to set the stage of where we are in post-secondary in this state. We're talking about, in the next generation, we have to have probably 60% of our students have some kind of credential, certificate, associate, or bachelor degree, in order to meet our workforce needs. We're probably looking for at least 200,000 people with these credentials in the next few years. And one of the major problems here is affordability. But we have to look at a shared responsibility between the student, the guardian or parent, if you will, the state, the feds, and the institution itself. And right now in Georgia, I think some of us lose sight of this once in a while. Over 25%, 26% of our families earn less than $30,000 a year. And for these people, that's tuition would be about 13% of their income. And it continues, and that's particularly worse for obviously the four-year institutions versus the two-year institutions. Student debt in this state ranges anywhere from, after they graduate, from $7,000 to $25,000. You know, in between 2011 and 14, we saw incomes drop in Georgia. CPI went up about 22%. Two-year tuition rose 78%. Four-year tuition 93%. So we got to look at affordability. It's certainly an issue. Another thing too is institutions is efficiency in our institutions, our post-secondary. I will tell you that when I spoke to the governor, it's the perception by a lot of people, and maybe not fair, but that we may have more vice presidents in our colleges and universities than we do in our banks, and most of us don't think that's a good thing. We don't know what a lot of them do. So in talking with the governor, met with him, met with Chancellor Wrigley, outgoing Chancellor Huckabee, the incoming outgoing chair of the Board of Regents, and also the president of the Southern Regional Education Board. We talked about doing a study of higher education. There's been a third party, done by the auditor here recently. And the good news from that audit is, if you look at Georgia from a tuition standpoint, we're a pretty darn good deal. For those of you who are football fans, particularly if you rank ourselves with the other SEC schools. So our tuitions for that level. And at the technical colleges, I think, Gretchen, it's been 5 years since we increased the price on a course. Yeah, 5 years, or, you know, it just 4, you know, so it's really, we're quite a bargain, but nevertheless, we still have the affordability situation. And so I really appreciate the governor saying that he thinks we do need to look at these things, affordability and efficiency. You know, this is not a plan to design a needs-based funding system. I think my own personal feelings are that we have to look into some needs-based. In fact, the University of Georgia made a big announcement today about a program they're doing for needs-based education. And Georgia Tech's had the Tech Promise program. Georgia State's had the Panther, whatever they call it. Because, you know, when I meet with Georgia Gwinnett College and they tell me they started out in August with 13,200 students, and by the time September rolls around, they're down to 12,400, and kids are not showing up for $400, $500. They can't afford it. And for most kids, we've probably spent $120,000 educating K through 12. It seems a little stupid to me that we're losing these people. Plus, the bottom line is this. If we're going to fill jobs and continue our prosperity, we've got to get more graduates, pure and simple, with skills. So the governor agreed, and SREB's, thanks to them, the Southern Regional Education Board, the best part of all is we got somebody else to pay for this study. It's going to be by outside consultants. We've already started the work. There's probably, they put about $400,000 in it from the Gates Foundation. And we originally were going to have a Senate study committee in the off session. We didn't do it for this reason. There's a working group's been established from the technical colleges, the university system, and they will come back and render a report in the course of the upcoming year, several reports probably, of progress to a joint House and Senate committee meeting. And then hopefully any recommendations that would come forth and any legislation necessary we do next year, which happens to be Governor Deal's last year of office. So we'll see what happens with it. I've been down here 18 years. We've never done much with higher education except give them a pot of money. And they've been, you know, again, this is not a witch hunt. This is a fact that we do a lot of things well, okay? I mean, I had to read online that we probably had the finest program in the nation for online text or electronic textbooks in our institutions. I read that online of Athens newspaper. I never even knew that, okay? Or I watch and see what West Georgia's doing, for example, out here from working with the business community. I met with them and the things they're doing in the middle schools and high schools and the business community to get kids engaged to meet the needs of that area. So we do a lot of good things. Georgia State probably has one of the best mentoring programs in the nation. My question is, are we doing it at all our schools? I don't know. But I will give the Board of Regents a lot of credit. In the last 2 years, they put together a bunch of initiatives to go forward for efficiency. So we're all sort of on the same page, and hopefully we'll get a good result. And you know, we're already known for criminal justice reform, thanks to Governor Deal, and maybe we'll be known for higher education reform. So, enough of a speech. With that, I guess Tricia Chastain's going to speak to us. The Chancellor is traveling, and so he sent a very able-bodied replacement here to inform us about what's going on in the university system, and we very much appreciate you being here. And I'm going to make sure your mic's on up here. You good, Tricia?
I'm good, yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Tricia.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, for those remarks, and I think I'm going to touch on a number of those things that you mentioned today. Thank you, Chairman Jaspers, members of the committee. It is an honor to be here to represent the university system. The Chancellor, of course, is traveling and sends his regrets and sends his best. I talked to him over the weekend. I told him I was a little nervous about having to stand in for him today, and he said, well, let me give you some advice. Don't mess up. So that was real comforting. Those of you who know him well know how comforting he can be at times. As requested, I think the assignment today is to kind of go through our priorities for the next year, and I'm going to do that. I wanted to, for the benefit of some of the new members of the committee, just wanted to give you a real quick overview of who we are. We have 28 institutions all across the state of Georgia, and we are happy to report that this last fall we had record enrollment. We enrolled over 321,000 students. According to UGA, Jeff Humphreys, and I'm an economist there, we have an economic impact of $15.5 billion, and we do $2 billion annually in sponsored research. So we're really proud of that number in particular. That's money that's coming in from outside of the state, from the federal government, from private industry, from private foundations to sponsor research on our campuses. One quick brag point on that, Georgia Tech, for the third year in a row, has done $700 million in sponsored research. If you put all the universities in the country and you ranked them, all those that do not have a medical school, Georgia Tech would be ranked third in the country in terms of sponsored research, so we're very proud of that. That's right, Bert. So I'm going to talk about the Chancellor as priority. It's, as y'all know, he became Chancellor, Dr. Wrigley became Chancellor on January 1st, and he has been very clear with us on what he wants the staff to focus on, what he wants our institutions to focus on. And Chairman Miller, I have to say, it very much aligns with what you outlined. So I'm beginning to think maybe that is not a coincidence, though.
If you're Presbyterian, that's called predestination.
Very good. Our first priority is to ensure more Georgians are entering the workforce with a college credential. This is an effort that we launched in 2012 with the technical college system, the Complete College Georgia initiative. As you mentioned, Chairman, we need 60% of our workforce to have a post-secondary credential by 2025 in order to meet the workforce demands of that time. The good news is we are making progress. We have increased the number of college graduates entering the workforce by 14% in the last 5 years. The more challenging news is we got to keep the clip up at about 3% a year to get to 2025 to meet those numbers. It will not be easy. I think if there's anything we've learned over the past 5 years is that we can't just depend on increasing enrollment, filling more seats. We have to be more creative, and we have to find ways to, when we get kids on campus, to make sure they stay on campus, they progress, and they graduate. The good news on that front is that several of those are the numbers and how much.
By the way,
up.
we can get these slides for everybody, so don't feel like you got to try to take notes here with everything.
Okay. You have the slides?
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry. This is a slide that shows how much we've increased in the last 5 years. So we're proud of those numbers. The great news is our institutions, and you mentioned several of these things too. You should have just given this presentation, Chairman Miller. Are already doing really creative things to make sure we retain students on campus. We do degree roadmaps now, so we spell out very deliberately for a student what they have to do to graduate so they don't waste time or money taking courses they don't need, classes they don't need. We have the 15 to finish effort. This is encouraging our students to take 15 hours or more. Study after study shows that students who take 15 hours or more are much more likely to progress and graduate. Augusta University has really championed this effort. They have 85% of their students are taking 15 hours or more, and they're seeing the results of that. We have early alert systems. So now on our campuses, several of our campuses, if a student fails a test or they're struggling in a couple of courses, the alert system goes off at the advisement office, and they can proactively reach out to that student to see if they need additional tutoring, they need additional counseling, whatever might be going on to try to keep those students on track. Retention grants and scholarships, this is really coming from kind of the student finance background. This is something that I'm really proud of that we're doing. Several of our institutions have stepped up to the plate with private dollars that they have raised to provide retention grants and scholarships, need-based scholarship for their students. The Panther Grant, as you mentioned, is a small grant, a micro grant program. So when a student is struggling maybe one semester to meet their fees, they just need a few $100s, they can apply for the Panther Grant. And if they're approved, they get this grant. Georgia State has been doing this program since 2011. They've helped 8,000 students, and when they checked back in with those students a year later, 88% of them had either graduated or were still enrolled. So if you just think about that, that's students who were on the verge, as you said, of dropping out, and they were able to be helped by this program and to continue on with their education. We have several examples of that kind of stuff across the system. We actually have 13 institutions that have either need-based scholarships programs. You mentioned the one that UGA announced last week, the tech program. We have several others, large and small, where they're trying to help students with private dollars that they've raised. And then finally, free textbooks. Again, you mentioned this too. We are a national leader in free textbooks. Textbooks can be a tremendous cost for students. It can be as much as $1,200 an academic year for a student. Georgia has become a leader in offering options for students. For our e-core courses, which is our 29 online courses offered across the system, those books are free for students. So if you're taking any of our e-core courses, you get free textbooks. We also have the Affordable Learning Georgia initiative, which is us working with faculty across the system. We go in, they have to be willing faculty, and we transform their course from one that's dependent on a regular old textbook that could be $300 to open source and free online materials. And the faculty is enjoying doing this, and we're saving, last year we saved $3.5 million for our students, which, as ranked by Rice University, made us the #1 state in the country for reducing costs on textbooks. So we're very proud of that effort as well. Second priority, I think you mentioned this as well, making college more affordable and accessible for Georgians. This is certainly something that we know you all are concerned about. We've heard from many of you about that. We know you hear from your constituents about this. And it's something that the Chancellor really wants to focus on. Chairman Miller mentioned the study, the SRB study that we will undergo with SRB to look at ways that we can reduce costs, be more affordable for students. I do have a slide from SREB that just shows where we rank. Among the 16 SREB states, we are the 7th lowest in terms of tuition and fees. So we do feel like we're a good deal compared to other states. But as you mentioned, Chairman, there's always opportunities to look at additional things we can do. The state audit, again, you mentioned this as well. The Department of Audits over the summer and fall entered into a special examination on the cost of higher education. So they looked at the cost of higher education in the state of Georgia over the last 10 years. In the interest of time, I won't click through all these, but it's something that was a great exercise for us, was great interest to our board. I think it shows, again, that we actually are fairly affordable. It showed that we're 25% less our tuition and fees when compared to our peer state colleges. But it also gave us some great opportunities and great things to work on to remain affordable moving forward. So I encourage you, if you hadn't had a chance to do so, to take a look at that special examination. And finally, finding more opportunities to be efficient, control costs. Obviously, all these kind of build upon one another, looking for ways that we can be more efficient, particularly when it comes to administrative costs. The consolidations that we've done over the last 5 years certainly have allowed us to do that. We started 5 years ago with 35 institutions. Now we have 28. And they have allowed us not only to serve students better, we believe, and serve regions of our state better, but they've also allowed us to save $24 million that we've been able to redirect back into our core mission, back into faculty and student support and those things that help students graduate and persist and all the things that we want to be doing on our campuses. So we're proud of those efforts as well, and I think you'll hear more from the Chancellor about ways that we can be more efficient and control costs. And then just finally to wrap it up, these are some of our kind of, accolades we've gotten over the past year. You've probably heard this one before, but we are one of 3 states in the country that has 2 universities in the top 20 U.S. News and World Report. We try to say that anytime 2 or more people are gathered, so you've probably heard that one. We also, this last year, by Kiplinger's Personal Finance, we're in the top 10. 2 of our institutions were in the top 10 list for best value. Right. So we are very proud. We do think we have a valuable product that we bring to the state. We know there's room for improvement. We look forward to working with y'all on those ways to improve. And finally, everything I talked about today, is really brought to life on our campuses by our faculty, by our staff, by our students. So we always welcome, and many of you come often, we always welcome you to come visit our campuses. It's always a great learning experience, not only for you, but also for us. So we, maybe after the session, encourage you to come see us when you can. Thank you, Chairman.
Tricia, the other thing, couple of things, I think, there's an audit just coming out on our online classes. We don't make out very well on that, being very open about it. There's some areas for improvement. You know, there's something wrong when it's costing you more for an online class than if you're physically in the classroom. Something doesn't jive there. That audit's just come out. The other thing I think the regents have taken the steps, because we all know fees can get out of touch a little bit. Now any more fees that are going to be increased in our universities and colleges in the system, we're going to have to be approved by the regents. In the past, each institution could do that. Basically what happened, the kids voted for it, and then the parents had to pay for it. So I think the regents have taken control of that as well, and I really do commend them for that. The last couple of years since I've been down here, they've been very proactive in trying to make positive steps as efficiency and affordability. Obviously, the consolidation was a very, very difficult thing, and it is a difficult thing because it's hard for communities, it's hard for everybody. So, you know, we're very proud of what the university system's doing, and hopefully when we're done with the review and changes we make, we'll even be going forward, because it's all about jobs, folks. It's all about, you know, continuing the economic success we have here in Georgia. So I will tell the chancellor, you can fill in anytime.
Thank you,
So
Chairman.
we appreciate it very much. I'm going to give time for a couple of questions or two, if anybody has any. And the first question is going to be from the chairman, and then Scott, are you number 4 or 5? Okay.
Petty.
We'll do a couple of questions here.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. We appreciate you being here today. I just got a question on the bar graph you put out on tuition and fees. Just for my curiosity, and that's a committee, you'll have to get used to it. I'm a very curious person. I'm not afraid to ask a question. I'd love to see that broken out with a line in between it, what the tuition are and what the fees
Okay.
are, and all those different, just so it gives a better relationship of what our tuition is compared to the others.
Okay.
What our fees are compared to the others.
So you kind of want to see it by tuition and by fees, separated out?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And you can do it
We
on the
certainly-
same bar, but just as it runs across, just show me where tuition is and where fees are. And just, we talk about free books, and this will be for Commissioner also. On Move On When Ready students, I've got just a phone call over the weekend of a Move On When Ready, and you mentioned E-Core courses. Is that in their group of courses that they can use, or are they? I mean, you can come back to me on that, but I think
Yeah.
this is one I see as a really hindrance to some young people on the Move On When Ready when they're engaging both of our institute, groups in books. 'Cause
I
that's a straight out of the, parent pocketbook thing.
I do know that online courses are available to Move On When Ready students. I specifically the E-Core courses, I'll probably have to get back to you on that.
I'm just curious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Number 5.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your presentation. We certainly will let the chancellor know you did a very good job. But I just want to, can you go back to page 5 when you shared information about the early alert system? I have 2 quick questions.
Okay.
But if you can just kind of reiterate that about the early alert system, I just want to learn more
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
And which universities, do you know which universities have that particular system?
I know Georgia State has had it the longest. I know Savannah State is adopting it. We have several, I think 5 or 6. I can probably get you the list. We
Okay.
can certainly follow up and do that. Did you want me to explain it further? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
just a little bit more about the early alert
So
system.
it's a system that is embedded into when grades are reported, and it links up with the advisement office. So when a student fails a test or is struggling in a couple courses, or even some of them are sophisticated where they see a student who puts they register for classes and they have registered for a tremendously hard semester. Maybe you haven't thought this through and you don't need to be taking, 3 math courses when you got a C in math last semester. They can help the students, advise them a little more closely, and also be alerted when the student is struggling. I think, it's particularly helpful, I think, as we reach these goals, these 60% goals, we are reaching more first-generation college students who, when they fail a test or they're struggling in a course, especially their first year, they don't necessarily have anyone back at home to commiserate with, to call, and their parent can say, well, college is tough and you need to study. They don't have that. And so having kind of this a system where we can proactively reach out to students like that has been helpful, and is something that I think more and more of our campuses are looking to adopt. Does that help at all?
It does. So it's not mandatory for the universities right now. It's kind of on a volunteer
It's
basis.
not mandatory as I understand it.
But I tell you what, that's one of the things that's going to probably come out of this study. When we're doing something well somewhere and it's nationally recognized, the question comes to mind, why aren't we doing it everywhere? And I think that's where we're looking for efficiencies and things to do well. And so that's a great question that you had there. I commend you. Very good. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. And I think our state's challenge is not only going to be to make sure that we have individuals entering the workforce with the proper credentials, but also providing opportunities for people to acquire and achieve other credentials throughout their careers, a real system of lifelong learning, not just when you're at 21 or go on to get a master's degrees and things like that. So with that, my question is to follow up on the online learning and to dig a little bit deeper. I was skeptical of it at first in terms of its ability to be able to provide the same quality experiences within the classroom, but my opinion has changed after taking a few courses, and it seems that it could be a way to efficiently and economically make opportunities available, particularly if some of the content is filmed beforehand to allow people who are working and everything else to work the classroom experience around their very busy schedule. So where is the university system in terms of that? Because I think other states, for example, North Carolina, are really doing an outstanding job in making these programs accessible without in any way lowering or reducing the quality.
Well, I might have to, I might have to get back to you or get someone on the staff who's a little bit more of an expert on our online. We have a gentleman named John Sizemore who oversees that effort system-wide. We do have our e-core courses, which I mentioned. So we have 29 core courses that any of our institutions can offer, any students from our institutions can offer, and they can take anywhere. Georgia Tech has certainly been a leader in the MOOCs and the online MOOCs, and is offering a couple now master's programs that are as little as $4,000. They're affordable. I'm not going to give you. They're very affordable. So you're right. It is a way to reach more students and do it at scale at a much more affordable in a much more affordable fashion. Speaking to the audit that the chairman mentioned, a couple things on that. I think one of the more interesting things about it was that we realized the majority of our students who are taking online courses are actually also taking classroom courses. Right. So these are what we call hybrid students, and they're really, and so even our traditional students are gravitating more towards, maybe I'll take one course online and two in the classroom. And then the chairman also mentioned the cost, and if you read the audit, there's no doubt that there's some things that we need to fix there in terms of the cost of our online programs. We have already, the board voted proactively in January to approve online fees, tuition and fees, just like we approve tuition and fees for every other our regular courses as well. And I think that will help manage the costs. We've encouraged our institutions to freeze their costs at the current level and to look at ways to reduce costs to make sure that that's a more affordable option. So we're, it's something that we're continuing to look at. It's certainly, 10 years ago, probably not many people were doing it, but pretty much all our students are interested in it and want to learn more about it today.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Nan, last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your being with us today and your remarks. Just quickly, peer states, you use that term of art. Who are the peer states that we compare with?
Our peer states generally are the 16 SREB states. I don't know particularly for the audit, you're speaking, the Department of Audits and their special examination might have used a smaller group.
Yeah.
Because that's what we refer to. It's the Southeast region.
Yeah, 16 states.
The push that the governor and the chancellor have led on expanding our numbers of successful college achievers and completers. Do you see a pathway to improve those numbers by working on this question of letting these bright, capable, qualified students who are otherwise eligible for being educated at your schools get in-state tuition even though they were brought here as children
Mm-hmm.
and don't have documents, they were not born here, they're not citizens?
Tricia, I'm gonna take you off the hook on that one, because right now, that particular case is in the court system, and I don't think we're gonna be changing any policies at this point. At the present time, they have to pay out-of-state tuition,
That's right.
and
Which-
and the court has ruled one way and it's under appeal, so it wouldn't really be fair to the university system to comment on something under appeal, so that's,
Well,
that one we're gonna have to wait
Mr.
and see.
It's just a glaring example that we have students educated, invested in, went through K through 12 here, and they cannot afford out-of-state tuition, so they leave the state or they sit home and don't get educated. And then finally, master scholars, I don't know if that's the correct term that I'm using, you know, how we funded, Mr. Chairman, over the years.
The Zell Scholarship, is that what you mean?
Well, no, these aren't scholarships, these are to attract top academic
Okay.
leaders, professors that are
Oh, okay,
masters in their
okay.
field. And I may not be using the right
Terminology.
terminology. Are you, it's
I'm
been in the
not.
budget over the years. It's been an argument for why this university needed investment, state dollars to attract,
These are the research people you're
Oh,
speaking of?
it's exactly.
You're
The
talking about
eminent
research people.
scholars, the GRA, eminent scholars, is that what you're?
Eminent scholars is the
Okay,
word, eminent
okay.
scholars, I would say master scholar. How is that program going, and how diverse is the pool that we attract that actually place it?
You know, I do not, Senator, have an answer to that question. I did see Mike Cassidy here, so he might be able to follow up after the meeting and answer those questions specifically.
And I mean, a lot of committee members probably aren't familiar with
Yeah.
that, Mr.
Okay.
That's a great program.
with that whole program.
Okay. Listen, Tricia, thank you so much.
Thank you very
okay?
much. Appreciate it.
Our next up is going to be Gretchen Corbin from the Technical College System. Gretchen, do me a favor if you could, too. I think Representative Holcomb mentioned the fact when he's talking about the people, and we're talking first generations here, which is so critical. But you might want to mention the fact about the people whose skills are no longer relevant, what the role is of technical colleges in teaching them new skills. Because this is another big component that we're finding in the workforce, that the job is no longer out there, and yet these people are accomplished folks, and our technical colleges are playing a big role in retraining these people as well. So if you can weave that in, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I
Thank
would
you.
enjoy doing that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and also Chairman Jaspers, for having me here today, and all members of the committee. It's great to be with you today. My name is Gretchen Corbin. I'm the Commissioner of the Technical College System of Georgia. It's always good to be with you on behalf of Governor Dill, all of our students, and all of our institutions. I think, if you don't mind, I want to jump right into that question, because I sure don't want to forget it. Something that we do well at the Technical College System of Georgia, well, let's just back up. Our mission is always workforce development. We do it through 3 areas: adult education, economic development, and the most important, technical education. And so when we are either training an individual as they are a new student, a young student, a high schooler, a traditional age college student, a non-traditional college age student, we also do some incredible things in economic development. So I would answer your question by saying that there are 2 areas where we can assist an individual who may have been in the workforce, has found themselves needing an additional skill set. And the first is obviously through the traditional education that we do. And we can do this through certificate, diploma, or degree programs. So as small as 6 weeks to 2 full years of education in any type of subject of our 600 that anyone would be interested in. But our second piece is also very interesting and something that we don't usually get into the weeds about, and that's kind of our economic development contract service training services. And so all of our all of our colleges have economic development arms, and they are responsible for working with all of our Georgia companies. And when they have retraining needs, when they are getting new lines in, when they are getting new equipment, when their workforce needs new skills, they have the ability to work with a company and say, you have 6 individuals, you have 100 individuals that we need to retrain. Let's pull together a program for you and do that through our economic development services. So if you ever have a company in your community that says we're interested in retooling, we have more advanced machinery coming in, or I'm interested in some of my employees going from one area of a skilled workforce to another area of a skilled workforce, how can you help? We would love to send our colleges out to assist in those efforts. Mr. Chairman, does that answer that question a little bit?
Thank you.
Thank you. So just getting into the basic presentation, and I think I may have just done it all, but kind of getting into the basic presentation today. As I mentioned, our mission is always technical, academic, and adult education and training focused on building a well-educated, globally competitive workforce in Georgia. What does this mean? You'll hear me say this. Bottom line, bottom line, bottom line, we are workforce development. When you look at our colleges, we were having some conversations this morning. We are all about workforce development. We do this through our priority, which is technical education, through our colleges, and we want to make sure that technical education is always the mission that we have our eye on. Do we also do some incredible articulation with our university system partners? Absolutely. Are we having some incredible success in Move On When Ready? Absolutely. And we want to be successful in those areas for those customers, but we realize that technical education is why you have the Technical College System of Georgia, and we will always take that responsibility to the fullest. And that's what we go to bed about thinking about, and that's what we wake up every morning thinking about. So workforce development is our mission. We do this through 3 areas, as I mentioned earlier. In technical education, we have over 130,000 students that are in our colleges. So when we talk about technical education, that's those 22 colleges, 85 campuses that you are passing on the way in the morning. In our college campuses, we have over 130,000 students. Economic development, 2 ways. I mentioned our contract training earlier that we do through our economic development divisions on our campuses. And then you know about our world-renowned Georgia Quick Start, our free customized training services to our new companies that are coming into Georgia.
Explain that to the newer members, that how that's really been on the forefront for us for a lot of these companies coming to Georgia.
Yes,
Just
sir.
explain that a little bit to some of the newer members on the committee, if you would.
So we are responsible for Georgia Quick Start. It is an entity to itself, and it is literally a discretionary incentive that the Department of Economic Development provides to a company that is looking to grow in Georgia. It can be for an existing industry or for a new company that is looking to grow for Georgia. This is part of Georgia's economic development package. We do not begin executing our Georgia Quick Start division unless we have had a request from the Department of Economic Development. So once we've had a request, we work with the Department of Economic Development in talking to a company about their training needs. Then if a company says we're coming to Georgia or we're growing jobs in Georgia and we would like to use Quick Start services, our incredible team goes in and works with that company executive to determine what the needs of their workforce will be.
And somebody like Caterpillar, what a big difference that was for us to land someone like that. But
Someone like Caterpillar would tell you it is the reason that they came
that's
to
exactly
Georgia.
why they're here.
Thank you for the question.
That was my setup.
Thank you for that. So it was a good one. They would tell you there were many incredible reasons that they came to Georgia, but they will tell you the day that we won. There were days that we secured the project. They will tell you the day we won the project was when our Assistant Commissioner for Economic Development, Quick Start, Jackie Rohosky, and the college president of Athens Tech visited their headquarters to really go through Georgia Quick Start. Because when you really go through Georgia Quick Start, Mr. Chairman, to go back to your question, what is it? It's free and customized training for the company as they need it. So some companies need advanced manufacturing training. Some companies need very confidential training. I think about Pirelli that was working with this new technology called Mears technology. They didn't want anybody to know about it, but they trusted Quick Start to go into Milan, Italy, understand what that technology was, bring it back, and develop it through Quick Start. What we also like to say, our secret sauce about Quick Start is the fact that you have placed it with the Technical College System of Georgia. So for Caterpillar, for example, Caterpillar having the director of Quick Start, but that college president beside them to really close that deal. What they saw was not only are my workforce will be up and running the day one I start my operations, but also for the next 20 years, I have the commitment of the college beside them to carry on that training. So Georgia Quick Start is something we are very appreciative of, and appreciative of yours and the governor's support of that continued program. So, economic development, two ways we do that: Georgia Quick Start, and then own or within all of our communities, own the campus through our departments of economic development. And then adult education. Let's don't fool ourselves. Adult education is incredibly important. When we have over 1 million of individuals in Georgia that do not have a GED or an equivalent, we know that it is important for our work in adult education. I want to express our appreciation to Governor Dill and his leadership in making sure that we weren't just good, but we were great with our prison system. So he through his budget last year, and you're agreeing to his yes vote within our budget, we are now in 21 of our 23 county prisons doing adult and technical education. We also obviously do this in the traditional way, own our campuses and within our communities of adult education. Technical College System of Georgia, as I mentioned, we have 22 colleges. We have 85 campuses. And those ebb and flow as we need them. If we find that we have a community that needs work, we're going to go in, we're going to do more. If we see that enrollment is down in one area, we're going to fluctuate there as well. Very quickly for an operational update, you will see that we have expanded our SAC-COC accreditation to all of our 22 colleges. We've enjoyed our relationships with SAC-COC, and we're thrilled that that is complete. We are all accredited, and now we have the ability to articulate fully with the University System of Georgia for all of our colleges. Funding for 3 new college and career academies last year took place. Chattahoochee County, Tift County, and Worth counties are those counties that will now be working with a new college and career academy. We are thrilled about our co-requisite remediation implementation at all of our colleges to make sure that if we have individuals that need remediation before they go straight into technical courses, that they have the ability for us to combine their courses so that they're doing a little bit of both. They don't get frustrated, but they get excited about the momentum they see. And then thanks to all of you and Governor Dill, we have expanded our Strategic Industry Workforce Development Grant, and we have expanded that with industrial maintenance. We heard from Kia and their suppliers and other industries around the state that we needed to expand that. So 12 industries. If anyone ever says to you, I can't afford higher education in Georgia, say you are absolutely wrong. We have the Strategic Industry Workforce Development Grant where you can go to technical college for no tuition whatsoever, and they are available in 12 industries, anywhere from traditional industries, to allied health, to some exciting ones, some new and recent ones like the film industry. And then more importantly, I always want to point to those 12 industry sectors relate to 205 of our programs. So that is 1/3 of the programs that we do within the Technical College System of Georgia. Governor Dill's Strategic Industry Workforce Development Grant and your leadership has made a free education possible for our Georgians. And then just in regards to priorities, just a heads up, next year when I'm here, it will not say Sewigdig. We will have a brand new name that we will all remember, and our students will, more importantly. Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of budget slides, but I don't think that I'm going to go into those. You asked for our priorities. We have mentioned that. My biggest priority is making sure the Technical College System of Georgia stays on track in workforce development, and specifically in our industrial and our trades, and then as well being strong proponents of allied health, our Move On When Ready, and our articulation pieces. We want to be that college that all of our Georgia students can go to, whether they are looking for a 6-week credential or a 2-year piece to then transfer to the University System of Georgia. And most importantly, we want to make sure that we are relevant to our Georgia companies and that we are providing continued partnerships to our Georgia companies and our Georgia students so that we will make prosperous employees and maybe even grow additional businesses of those great students that we have.
Thank you, Gretchen. I got to commend you and the university system and the independent colleges as well. Representative Jones last year passed this bill, HB 801 STEM bill, where you could get additional half-point credit if you take these advanced courses. And we probably need to make everybody do this that passes a bill. I had to sit through the 6 or 8 meetings where they went line by class and make sure the numbers were all lined up so you could transfer from the technical college to the university or whatever. Yeah, that's what it is. No, articulation was not the word I used, okay? But my point being, you all cooperated, you worked well, you're working well together. People have to understand, a lot of states, the technical colleges, the university colleges, the community, they don't talk. I will say, going back to Governor Perdue when he started that thing with the alliance of all the various agency heads. So I do commend you very much, including the independent colleges as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you again on that very much.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna cut it off here because just as a time, if you got a particular question for Gretchen, if you'd ask her afterward, I'd appreciate it. We're gonna go on because the money people are next, which is very important. This is Georgia Student Finance. Sean, come on up, the President of Student Finance.
I kind of like the sound of that, the money people.
That is the truth.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chairman Millar, Chairman Jaspers, members of the Joint Committee, thanks for having me. My name is Sean Ryan. I am the proverbial new kid in class, having been sworn in at Student Finance in November. I want to thank you for the opportunity to have me here. As you said, we are mostly known for being the money people. We do a few other things, and I think we do them well, and I'd like to run through some of them right now. So, the Georgia Student Finance Commission, or GSFC, is most notable for its administration of the HOPE programs. However, we actually began administering student financial aid programs in 1965, and we currently administer around 20 state, lottery, and federally funded scholarship, grant, and loan programs. Our mission is to increase access to education beyond high school, and we do that in a number of ways other than simply providing funding. Outside of administering scholarships, grants, and loans, we provide a variety of services to help Georgians plan, apply, and pay for college. We have a team of dedicated staff, not only at our central office, but stationed around the state, helping students and their families navigate the college application and financial aid process. Some of the activities that we're focused on currently, and you'll see them on this list, include FAFSA completion events.
Explain that to what some of the new people said, what it is.
Sure, so FAFSA is how you get free money from the federal government to go to college. Is that simple enough?
Because it's free, it's all free. No, go ahead.
I'll get into FAFSA
Okay.
a little bit later in the presentation.
Okay.
It's very important because we are leaving money on the table as a state, and we have some numbers there. So FAFSA completion events that we are hosting and attending. Financial literacy is huge for us. Promotion of our new website, gafutures.org. If you haven't been, I would highly recommend that you go. It is a one-stop shop for post-secondary education here in Georgia. You can actually apply for college on our website, which is pretty cool. We do school outreach, loan servicing enhancements, the promotion of Georgia's Path to College 529 savings plan. I'll mention that one a little bit later as well. And providing financial aid information services statewide. So I will get into a little more detail on these. As I mentioned, we have staff stationed around the state corresponding to the colored territories you see on this map. Apologize, it's so far down there. We would love the opportunity to schedule an event, be it a financial aid night or a FAFSA completion event in your district. We're more than happy to work with any of you. Sometimes you are the conduit to help us get into a school district so we can go and do this. I remember when I was applying for college, my mom went to one, and the only reason my FAFSA form got filled out is because she went and we had someone go through it with her. It is I'll get into this as well, but it is a complex document.
Do you have any idea what percent of kids were not reaching?
I can get you the exact number. If we can skip ahead in here, I can tell you that in 2014-2005 school year, Georgians left about $80 million on the table. And that's federal money, so that's
I
not
understand.
state appropriations. So we're talking outside of HOPE for lottery, outside any other grants and scholarships. These are federal Pell Grants and loans that, because they didn't even fill out the form, they didn't even know they were eligible for. And I'll get into some of the correlation that we have here also with what filling out the form does for post-secondary education applications. Let's see. Let me see if I still on slide 5. Student Finance's K-12 and post-secondary outreach teams conducted almost 4,000 events and visits at middle schools, high schools, colleges, and community organizations across the state. More than 120,000 students and their families learned about federal and state financial aid programs, the application processes, and other information to help them continue their education beyond high school. As I mentioned at our FAFSA completion events, I want to focus on this briefly. FAFSA, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the acronym, it's the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This is how you figure out applicability for Pell Grants and student loans. Again, it is free to sign up, but it is not easy. It's complex, and so our efforts are twofold on this. We're trying to educate Georgia families on how to actually fill out the form, but we are also active in support of FAFSA reform. We think that the form itself could be done in a better, more simplistic manner, which would make it easier for us to fill out and leave less money on the table, as I said.
Is that a regional effort when you say that?
That's actually a national effort.
Okay.
That's some of the national organizations that we are members of. We
Okay.
have similar organizations to student finance throughout the country. We are all looking at that because it's not just Georgia where
No, I
it
understand.
happens, but it's a lot of money in Georgia. And it's a lot more than it should be. Talking about correlations, the U.S. Department of Education reports that 90% of students who simply fill out a FAFSA form will enroll in some form of post-secondary education. It's 90%, so it's huge to get that form filled out. Between free money left on the table and the association between filling out the form and higher post-secondary enrollment rates, this is imperative for Georgians. And so that's why we are trying to educate people on how to sign up, but we're also trying to get the form to be a little bit less complex. FAFSA completion is a priority for our organization, and we've joined, as I said, the national effort on completion rates. So last year we hosted 65 financial events. I am very happy to report that to date in fiscal year 2017, we have already hosted or participated in over 125 events, and we are focusing on counties with the lowest completion rates. So we have some where we know the completion rates are higher than others, and so we're looking at areas where the completion rates are significantly lower than what they should be. In addition, our Path to College 529 marketing teams assisted with the opening of 13,500 new accounts. The Path to College Savings Plan is a great tool for preparing for future post-secondary costs. This is something that Georgia families can do to prepare for post-secondary education. I'd also like to add that there is a certain tax benefit that goes along with this as well. You can donate to basically your children $4,000 a year that is tax deductible. And lastly, on this slide, I want to touch on, and I'm going to go into more detail on this, our Reach Georgia Scholarship Program added 28 new school districts and 350 new scholars.
That's the governor's program where we hope to have, I think in the next 5 years, about 2,000 a year coming out of that, I believe was what the number was, if my memory serves me right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm going to go into a little more detail
Okay.
on here. For those of you who aren't familiar with REACH, REACH stands for Realizing Educational Achievement Can Happen. It's Georgia's need-based scholarship program for promising students. It's a public-private scholarship and involves a mentoring aspect to help ensure scholars who are nominated in 8th grade will be able to graduate from high school and enter their post-secondary education prepared to succeed. Graduates of the program receive $10,000 in scholarship money to go to a Georgia post-secondary institution, many of which match or double match that amount if they get one of our REACH students. And we have that in writing. We have MOUs with a lot of our schools. So personally, I'm very passionate about REACH. Specifically, its potential to change the lives of not just our scholars, but also their families and many times entire communities. We are talking in many cases about disadvantaged children who will be the first in their college and their family to go to college. REACH pays above and beyond Hope and Zell Miller, so Hope and Zell would kick in first. We're hoping that a lot of times REACH, because I'll get into a little more of this too, but a lot of these kids are going to be Hope eligible. They're academically promising that they're already going to have. We have a very generous program, as you know, with Hope in the state of Georgia, one of the most generous in the country. A lot of these kids are going to be eligible for Hope and Zell Miller. This is hopefully that last mile of financing that we often talk about will hopefully fill in the blank there so that a child who may not get any assistance from their family, may not qualify for any other scholarships on top of Hope, this can hopefully get them up over the top. We just had our 3rd annual REACH Day at the Capitol last Wednesday, meeting the scholars, especially our 17 seniors who comprise the first class who will graduate from high school this year, was incredibly rewarding. Malcolm, who was our keynote speaker from the class, is intending to go to Georgia Tech and be an engineer. He's going to be the first one in his class, or in his family, to graduate from college, and I'm very happy. I'll give another tech plug for tech here. They are a double match school. So he, assuming he graduates, which he is on pace to do, I think with a 3.75 or so, he's going to get $30,000 on top of Hope in order to go to Georgia Tech. I want to thank those of you. So I know I see recognize some faces, even though I'm new. Thank you to those of you who attended that event, and to those of you who've been present at REACH signing days across the state. If you haven't gone to a REACH event, please get in touch with us. We will reach out to you about them. We are actually getting pretty good at turning these into signing days, a lot like you would see with athletic scholarships. The kids are excited, the communities are excited, and they're the ones nominating these kids. So we don't actually go out, they are recommended to us. It's a really, really special event. I've yet to be to one myself, but I've seen a lot of photos and a lot of video of them.
You also appreciate contributions from legislators.
We do, and actually the new reachga.org website is up. We will take donations right on the website. So if you all want to take out your smartphones right now, the button's right up top to donate, and it's tax deductible because we're a 501c3. This is an innovative program. I do want to point this out because I know that we've talked about needs-based aid. This is an innovative program. It's one that Governor Deal is hugely supportive of. As other legislation that shall remain nameless may be floating out there, this is a program that the governor would like to see more funding go to. The nice thing about it is that it's a public-private partnership, and when I say that, I mean that we are actually student finance, and the REACH team are actually out fundraising on behalf of the REACH Georgia Foundation, which gets 50% of that $10,000 is coming from private donations. At REACH Day, Chick-fil-A donated $100,000. Georgia Power, $200,000. The Path to College Plan, another $200,000. So in one day, we got $500,000 in scholarship money. That's a lot of kids going to college who wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to do so without that. This program is one that I believe will be highly effective, not just in getting students into post-secondary institutions, but helping them to graduate. And in my mind, that's key. It's not helpful for us to take an at-need kid and just give them a scholarship and not prepare them for college, because that's when you end up with the kids who make it through their freshman year and drop out, and then all they get is student debt. This program is not as big as I'm sure most of us would want it to be. We've got 17 seniors this year, but the goal is actually to get to 3,000 in 2020. The goal here, my goal that I'm setting, is we're going to target 100% graduation rate, and I think we can get there. I would rather see 3,000 kids who wouldn't have had a chance otherwise graduate than throw a bunch of money at the problem and not really know what kind of results we're getting. I think it's an absolutely fantastic program. It's the reason when the governor's office approached me about this job, it's the reason I came to student finance. I will be very frank with you. I'll let you look at a very small pie chart, but the takeaway from this is getting back to our overall mission. In total, during fiscal year 2016, we awarded more than $713 million to over 260,000 Georgians so they could pursue a post-secondary credential. Hope, Zell Miller is hugely generous compared to what other states are offering. And so Tricia was nice enough to bring a very cool bar graph that showed that we are actually doing fairly well compared to our peer group. These are states that a lot of them that don't have anything like Hope. And so when we do talk about college affordability, please do keep that in mind, that Hope is out there. It's merit-based, but if you can make the grades and you can stay in shape, you're going to get a lot of money toward your post-secondary education.
To expand what you want to do, and we're leaving the $80 million on the table, is the key that you're involved with the counselors in our various schools? I mean, what's the focal point for you to expand this program?
For REACH?
No, I'm talking about the $80 million for all of the federal dollars. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, I mean, what do we have to be doing in order to reach these people? Is it the counselors? Is it who do we have to go to get this done?
A lot of times, especially in my take on this, and Kaylee, my chief operating officer, who's been at student finance much longer than I am, will kick me in the back of the leg if I say something wrong here. I think the counselors are a good place to start, especially in some of the low take-up areas, because you're dealing with students who may not have the family support that some of us had. It is a twofold effort. We think it's too complex right now. We actually had a situation, very unfortunate situation, where a mother completed the form. It's an online form, and did not actually physically. She didn't sign the electronic form, and therefore they did all the work. They completed the whole thing, but per our rules and regulations, it's like they didn't even do it at all. it's little things like that. I mean, it's on us to make sure that people know that what the absolute expectation
Well,
is.
the only thing I would ask you is this, then I'm going to let PK, you ask a question, but anything we can do legislatively to help you, anytime we hear we leave $80 million on the
Yeah.
table, you probably got some people's attention with that number.
Yeah, and I hate to kick it upstairs, but it is the federal form, and so it's going to be up to the feds to streamline.
Or
it
if
to a
we need to
certain
lean
extent.
on some people in Washington, some of us maybe think there might be a little influence, we'll find out.
I came running down here from there, so I'm happy to go right back
Okay,
up with
very
you
good.
if you want.
PK, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had one question. I'm not sure if it goes along with the FAFSA form, the project. I know that a local school that's near my district, they were coming across students that I think there was confusion. They were thinking everything was like the Pell Grant. Some of this money they actually have to pay back. And so they went into some additional counseling with these students who are applying for student loans to help give them the idea that this money has to be paid back. And in that process, they found out they were able to actually lower the default
Sure.
on these loans and that sort of stuff, and people just understood it better. Do we do anything additionally to what there is a federal requirement, I think, for some counseling, but are we doing anything system-wide to help some of these students who may not be aware, especially the ones that are maybe first-generation college students that just don't have a concept of what that actually is?
Our resources are somewhat limited, but I will go back to this map. We do have our regional outreach territories where we have folks who are on the ground who are actually going to school districts to have some of these conversations. Because you're right, sometimes it's assumed it's a grant when it's a scholarship or where it's a loan, and kids don't necessarily know the difference. We're trying to work most of the time with the counselors to try and get that information out.
Well, the joke that's given is that it has to be paid back with interest, and they say, well, that's great. And he says, why? He goes, well, I'm interested.
Yeah,
Sean, I'm going to take one more question.
Sure. That's a good joke.
And those of us that serve on the Education Committee realize that she's making really her debut after her first film appearance, Amy Carter. So I haven't seen the sequel to Amy Carter 2. So we'll see what she has to say today too. But please be cognizant of we're talking Hollywood here, okay? So, Amy,
I'm suitably intimidated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to actually confirm with my colleague, Representative Chandler, that school counselors are an awesome way for us to address this. However, I believe it's 425 students per counselor in schools of that size. So 425 kids is a lot of students to try to get this message along with the other messages that they have to deliver.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman, when you talk about how we can help, I think that may be one place we can start.
okay, good. Those of you on appropriations, you have your mission from the star from Hollywood.
That is true, and I will reiterate that we've touched more than 120,000 students and their families so far to try and get that information out directly. And those events, you're getting families who show up to that. It's not just the communication to the counselors as well.
Sean, the
because-
good news, you did real good in your debut. You'll be invited back. So we appreciate you coming up here, being with us. Okay, very much.
Yeah. Do I have time to run through a couple more priorities, or am I done?
Go ahead.
All right. We got a couple of them. I'll run through them really quickly. I won't actually give you my whole spiel on Move On When Ready. I'll let you check out some of the numbers right now. What I will tell you is that, let's see, I'm trying to figure out how to do this the fastest. This goes into some of the rates that we actually reimburse for schools. And if you all don't have this in your packets, we're happy to get this to you. One thing that I would let you know is that we have seen a very sharp rise in the program. Fall of 2015, under the Excel program, these are the award dollars right here. You see Move On When Ready coming in fall 2016, and it's a 109% increase in dollar amounts. Saw a big increase last year. We're still accepting invoices for fall for a couple more weeks, and so we expect that number to rise a bit for 17. And this is the breakdown really quickly of where the Move On When Ready students are going. Previous chart showed that students at private colleges accounted for only 16% of the year-to-date fall awards, but this also shows that they are the fastest growing in the private industry, private institutions. Those institutions experienced a 54% growth in student participation from fall 16 to 17. This is a quick breakdown of just some quick high-level facts for Move On When Ready. 85% of Move On When Ready students attend a public high school. 76% of all courses taken are core. Students take on average 2.3 courses per term. And we've seen students participate from every county, every public school, and from many of the state's charter system. The last one I wanted to run through with you, I don't think we have the slide up here. Oh, no, we do. Sorry. One of our priority for this year is, as many of you may remember who were here, back in 2007, we actually instituted a system for high schools so that we could standardize the HOPE GPA across the state, especially with HB 801, which you had mentioned, which I think Commissioner Corbin had mentioned, allows for some extra grading for STEM courses. We are looking for, and the governor is making a recommendation for some money to do a very similar project at the college level so we can standardize courses there. It's going to be difficult for the USG schools, the TCSG schools, and the independents to calculate the HOPE GPA on their own with that weighting. We're very hopeful that y'all would agree with us that standardizing that would make everyone's lives a little bit easier. The goal for that, were it to be approved, would be for us to roll that out after fall of 2018. It's a tech project. I have some experience in those, having recently run one for the state. That's the goal. I'll get back to you on whether or not we actually get there in time. But I'm happy to take any other questions unless you want to kick me off the podium.
You're gone.
All right.
Corinne. For non-public post-secondary, we have 2 more speakers for y'all, just so everybody knows that at this point in time. And for the new members, would you explain the non-public post-secondary, what you're
Yes,
involved
Mr.
with?
Chairman, I'd love to. So you get this pulled up. Great. Well, good afternoon. My presentation will be a little bit shorter than the others, I promise. Chairman Miller, Chairman Jaspers, and committee members, thanks for having me. I am Karina Robinson, the Executive Director of the Non-Public Post-Secondary Education Commission. So who are we? MPEC is what we're known for around the Capitol for short, since we have a long name. We are the state agency responsible for the regulation of private post-secondary institutions within Georgia, as well as all post-secondary institutions from out of state that choose to be physically present with locations in Georgia, and those that do not have state authorization reciprocity agreement approval. We also regulate the schools that want to actively recruit in Georgia, or advertise. So you see a lot of, if you're on public transportation, MARTA, you see these schools advertising. Well, they have gone through us to get approval to do that. Donna, did I set something up wrong? No, just. Okay. It seems to, okay. Okay. I got it. We have a non-member staff with a Board of Commissioners that consists of 15 members who've been appointed by the governor. We are administratively attached to the Georgia Student Finance Commission and are located in their building out in Tucker, but it is for administrative purposes only. So if you ask President Ryan any questions about our schools or our agency, he'll either have a blank stare or quickly tell you to call me. Our primary mission is to ensure that each school doing business here in Georgia is educationally sound and financially viable. MPEG provides the critical consumer protection functions of assuring prospective and enrolled students that the schools regulate and meet our standards, and assuring prospective employers that the graduates have acquired appropriate job skills. We do this by providing standards and procedures and evaluation for oversight of institutions under the law. The MPEC staff reviews, authorizes each identified institution annually, provides student information, handles student complaints, manages school closures, along with student records resulting from those closures, and we grant exemptions as applicable. In FY, let's see, I don't know how the others were able to manage, like, there we go. In FY 2016, NPEC authorized 291 post-secondary educational institutions. Of those, 152 were degree granting and 139 institutions were non-degree granting. Otherwise, they're giving out certificates, is what the students are earning. These institutions serve more than 100,000 students annually. One of the very important roles of NPEC is the Tuition Guarantee Trust Fund. This is a fund that serves as an insurance pool of funds available for students of closed institutions. In other words, this is our safety net for our Georgians who are attending these schools. Authorized institutions make 5 annual payments into the fund. These are designed to provide a teach-out or reimbursement to students at institutions which close or fail to honor their commitment to complete the student's program of study. As of December 31st, 2016, we have $3.4 million in the fund. Our goals have a theme, consumer protection. We plan to increase public awareness of the role NPEC has regarding its institutions. There we go. Let's see. Sorry about that. Okay. In 2015, the Commission implemented a rigorous financial viability assessment of these authorized schools, and this is to ensure that the teach-out and the student reimbursements are minimized from the fund. I'm very proud of this financial viability assessment that we have rolled out. We are really looking into these schools. I have an external auditor who looks into their financials, who's provided a different layer than what my staff and the standards administrators can do. The financial auditor has, obviously, that's his business, is to look at the numbers. We look at not only the schools' finances, but some of these schools have corporations that are bigger. You look at DeVry, University of Phoenix. So we're looking at their financials as well, the parent company, not just the campus. We're looking at the parent company. And with this, we are hoping to target any possibility of a school closure that may happen because of their finances. So we're hoping to see that problem in advance. We are going to just continue to enhance our authorization process through innovative technology initiatives. Currently, all new institutions seeking authorization can apply online, and current schools can go online to renew. So we've eliminated the need for paper applications. Actually, we don't do anything paper now. It's all online. Another new option that we are working diligently with OPB and the Office of State Treasurer is to be able to offer online payments for these institutions and also for students who are seeking a student transcripts request. And that will help streamline our process as well and just be more efficient agency. You have our commitment to continue to regulate these schools the best that we can and to ensure that all are, like I said, educationally sound, financially viable. And we are here, we're the agency that looks out for our Georgia students attending these schools. I'm open to any questions. Yeah.
The one thing too is if the schools that you regulate, if they go under, you're also a safety net for these students to try to get reimbursed their fees and that type of thing, or if they pull out of the state and all those type of things. So you're really the policeman
Correct.
for these in-state and out-of-state private schools that people see advertised on television, for lack of a better word.
Correct.
I mean you're the cop.
Yes.
In this particular
we,
case. Okay.
Yes, they have to go through us in order to operate and to run their businesses in Georgia.
All right, we're going to take 3 or 4 questions. Scott, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a real quick question. How do you track the finances of these private entities?
We have so many different types of forms. Like our application process is quite extensive. We ask them to submit different, I can get you the exact list. Like there's these financial forms that they have to fill out. I believe it's called a Schedule K form that we ask how many students they have, how much tuition they're charging. Laura, I'm going to ask Laura real quick. Can you explain to them real quick what financial documents we ask for?
Sure.
Come on up to the mic.
Yeah, this is one of our standard administrators who evaluates these schools.
So for the large parent companies, we're going to be looking at their audits, their annual reports, anything like that goes to the auditor that she mentioned earlier. And for the small schools, they're submitting bank statement expenses, any sort of bankruptcy cases that gets reviewed. But it's a financial statement. I believe it's 10 pages long, all expenses, all revenues, things like that.
And then our external auditor, once he takes a look at it, outside of what the standards administrators are looking at, he will request more information.
Okay, Scott? Pat?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and it's nice to see you again, and I have grown to understand the importance of what you do because of people in my district who've gotten stuck in some of these not adequately regulated institutions and have had to end up with loans managed by the federal government that can never be erased through bankruptcy or any other thing with very high interest rates. So, I mean, seems to me you've gone from being an agency looking at mom and pop organizations into an organization that actually regulates incredibly sophisticated for-profit schools. So I think the work that you're doing and the fact that you've eliminated paper makes me very happy, because we used to hear about how bad the applications were. But I still hear about people who go to one of these schools with the promise that there are so many jobs available, and when they get finished and the teachers tell them that there's the best student in the class, they still can't find a job. Is there anything that you can do to help those students?
Right. I completely understand that concern. You know, these schools, if they're operating here, they have met our standards. These schools they have a lot of money, they advertise, and I think there is a big business here in Georgia, and there's a reason for that. And, you know, I'm not exactly sure what the reason is. I mean, we have a great university system, we have great independent college, we have great technical school system. Advertisements, you see them everywhere. And it's a great marketing campaign. So I think just education, like letting us, you know, I'm not going to tell the public sector what to do, but like there's just, you know, we have a great schools, you know, higher education system here in Georgia, and I think all it is about getting that word out as to so these students aren't, you know, going to to one of our proprietary schools.
Yeah. So to
Pat,
what
we probably need to track what the real graduation thing and what people actually have. Maybe we need to do some enforcement. What we can do legally, we can't. I don't know, but
well, some of it's controlled by the feds.
yeah, but nevertheless, it's a valid concern that
It's a
you know
real concern.
you're worried about fly-by-night university. I get you.
Well, I'm worried about training for jobs that actually
That don't exist. That don't
Yeah.
exist. All right.
And then who can monitor that? And so I just applaud what you're doing, and I know the agency has grown enormously. And it's an important one that we hear about after the fact.
Joyce,
So-
are you 18?
I am.
Okay.
You really mentioned what I wanted to mention about could we do anything about tracking this. But may I ask you a quick question? Is a post-secondary nonprofit, let me back up. A nonprofit school cannot come into Georgia without going through you all?
Correct.
What about these that advertise so much on television?
Yes, they have to go through us.
Those also?
Yes, even if they aren't, yes, they'll have to come through us.
They're non-public, as long as they're not public.
Okay.
Non-public is the key word.
Yes.
But it would seem, I get that. I just didn't know there was any kind of regulatory board for some of those. Because, like Pat's saying, you know, these kids are promised, oh, you can get a free education because I can get you loans. You
Right.
know, and they buy into this, and then they graduate. with
Well, and
lots
any
of debt
student,
and no
any
job.
student that is considering going to one of these schools can contact our agency.
Okay.
They can talk
Thank
to
you.
us, say what, you know, ask us any type of questions, what kind of, you know, we're getting student complaints. Have we gotten any for that school? They can call NPEC and ask us about any of these schools, and we can tell them everything that we know so they can make an informed decision.
To be
before they
fair, we
start to go.
probably need to do a better job as a state about public information for people, about how they want to check these things out before they get involved with them. We probably, as a state, need to do a better job. Patty, you're going to be the last question.
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a way that we can review a list of these schools that are considered to be non-public?
Yes, we have all of them are on our website. We have a great new website. You can just go to one of the tabs, and there is all the authorized schools that we have. In alphabetical order, you can type in keywords. We have a great search engine as well. But we can get a list to y'all as well.
Can any of the credits from these schools transfer over to the technical college system or the university system?
In some cases, I think they can, but it just depends. I don't know how smooth that transition would be. We've had, in some cases, 2 years ago, we had Loras Technical College that was here in Atlanta closed. It's a very abrupt closure. What was it called? Loras Technical College. So we started working with one other non-public technical colleges, but we also worked with the Technical College of Georgia to see if we can transfer these students.
Right.
It was quite the effort, and I'm not sure exactly how many were able to transfer and what they were able to do. But we do try to branch out and work with the public sector.
There's a lot of unhappy endings of these stories, unfortunately. Okay, thank you very, very much, Corinne. Appreciate it very much. President Baxter couldn't be here from the independent colleges, so we got this broken down old golfer coming here, Jet Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord, Mr. Chairman. They said from one to another.
That's true. We've played together. Go ahead, Jet. Jet Tony.
The gentleman knows from which
he speaks.
he speaks.
We appreciate you pinch hitting, Jet, very much.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Joint Committee, it is certainly a privilege for me to stand for Dr. Susanna Baxter, the president of the Georgia Independent College Association. Dr. Baxter is walking the halls of the nation's capital today, meeting with members of our congressional delegation.
Bless her.
I thought
we wouldn't wish that on anybody. Keep talking.
Thought I'd get an amen out of that to discuss federal issues. If you'll view the slideshow, you see an overlay of where the 25-member institutions of GICA are currently based. Of course, there are many satellite campuses that are serving students that fill some of that space there. You're going to hear a constant theme from me today, and that's partnership with USG and TCSG. And if you were to overlay the TCSG and USG institutions and their satellite locations, you would see a state that is brimming with higher education opportunities. We're proud to be a part of that. These are our member institutions. Some of you are graduates or have been on those campuses to study. Many of these are near you. And certainly at any time during the legislative session and throughout the year, if we can put you in touch with any of these institutions, we are privileged to do so. I asked for this slide to be put in. It was not in the original deck because I think that for TCSG and USG and the independent colleges, this says it all. There are a group of young women who have just graduated. They're taking their graduation selfie, and I feel certain, Commissioner Corbin and Tricia, that we are happy when students at any of the sectors and the systems enjoy this opportunity. So that's the theme today, is partnership toward completion. All right, just a little bit about our institutions. I'm not sure you can see it from this far, but our undergraduate enrollment is almost 42,000, and our graduate enrollment is 17,000. Our full-time enrollment is 87% of our enrollment is full-time, and 13% is part-time. And we'll talk a little bit about part-time in just a minute. As you can see, about a quarter of our students are graduate students, and we're very proud of that and the service that that provides to Georgia residents. Now, this figure here, 25,000 and more, are Georgia residents who choose to attend a private college in the state of Georgia. And the way that Dr. Baxter and I go about our business with you is we are very laser focused on Georgia residents attending private colleges. Now, I will say that our colleges are depending more and more on students from out of state enrolling in the private colleges in Georgia. We need that revenue, and we are pleased to see that rise. But Dr. Baxter and I are focused on the Georgia residents. Why? Because of that tuition equalization grant money that you authorize every year, and also for our participation in the HOPE program, for which we are very, very pleased. Now, this is the total Georgia resident undergraduate enrollment in private colleges. For those that are members of our organization, the number is 18,404.
You understand this does not include every independent college in the state. Okay, everybody,
Right.
the new members. Yeah, okay.
Our institutions are the traditional, not-for-profit schools that have been around for, many of them, for more than 100 years. If I had spent a little more time on the slide where we listed the schools, you would have noticed there are 4 women's colleges. There aren't many states that have 4 women's colleges in them. And in those women's colleges, you will find that the predominant work is toward STEM courses, and students are in the STEM fields, and international relations. Other courses that are being taught in our institutions, the larger number includes business, science, pre-med, and computer science. So we are partnering with the state institutions to fulfill those needs. Another point of pride I didn't mention on that list is that we have 4 historically black colleges and universities among our membership. And again, that is somewhat unique in the United States, that we would have 4 women's colleges and 4 HBCUs, and we're very pleased about that. As you know, most of our colleges and universities, again, have been around 100 years. They are denominationally affiliated. Many of them have retained their faith-based approach, their mission toward completing an education, providing an education that creates the whole person. This slide right here, I think might be surprising for some. 43% of our enrollment are white. 31% are African American, and others, the balance, describe themselves as all other, or not white, or not African American. Now, here's probably a surprising slide for you, and I can't compare it to the public system, but 60% of our students are female. That's problematic. And it would be even higher if several of our institutions had not brought football to their campuses. Football at a campus of, say, 800 to 1,000 students automatically raises your male population on campus 125. And so that's why you see some of the private colleges getting into the football business. But balance on campus is very important.
We may have to gavel these guys down after that. They're reminiscing back here now.
Okay. All right, toe meets leather. All right. Most of our students are under 25, but we are seeing a growing number, I think similarly to TCSG, in the population or the enrollment over 25, and you see that we have 14%.
Before I forget, Gretchen,
Yeah.
what's your average age at technical colleges?
I believe we've gone from 27 to 25. I'll need to get back to you.
About that, though, that's the average age.
Yes, sir.
So remember that with all these people, the number of years we waste with these people. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jet.
That's quite all right, Mr. Chairman.
We waste 7 years.
This is a very important slide. I know you cannot read those small numbers, but I want to tell you that 59% of our students receive institutional tuition aid. 59% of our students. Our Pell rate is 42%. So the myth that private colleges are chock full of rich folks doesn't apply in Georgia. 42% of our students receive
Explain that to the
some
newer
level
members
of-
what the Pell Grant is.
Pell Grant is the federal program that provides tuition assistance to citizens based on their family expectation of payment. So family income. Now, what do we do about that? How do we are able to
Excuse
have
me.
the number of students
Hey,
that we
Jet,
have?
just a minute on
Yes,
the
sir.
financial aid. The first time, I guess, back up one slide. I think ours is different.
It may be. We updated some numbers. Well, no, that should be.
We got 9% Pell Grant aid. You said 40.
I see that. I see that.
We're just, you know.
I'll rectify that with you.
That's a big difference.
It is.
I mean,
It is.
so,
I'll rectify
you know,
that.
just
I'll rectify that.
thank you. We were just asking over here. Thank you.
Right, and that's a good catch. I'm not gonna try to explain it right here, but, we'll get you the answer on that.
Don't try to mess around with a farmer back here.
That's right. All right. How do we get students in? How are we able to get students in? Well, we do it by raising, in 2014 and 2015, for instance, $112 million. Our institutions raised that amount of money out of thin air to provide tuition aid to students. And this is, here's the $1 million hit right here. Each of our institutions, on average, provides $16,431 in institutional aid to students whose families demonstrate financial need. And that's why we're such big proponents of a need-based scholarship program in the state of Georgia. So when you look at the $900 that the state is currently providing students through the tuition equalization grant, know that our institutions are providing $16,000 in on-the-ground financial aid for students. And you might say, well, why do you do that? Well, if we don't do that, we're not going to have full enrollment. And if we don't do that, we're not going to have that type of enriched student body, a diverse student body. All right. Earlier it was mentioned that private colleges are the fastest growing provider of Move On When Ready. Now, the reason we're the fastest provider is we got out of the gate just a little bit late. And despite Dr. Baxter's and my efforts to persuade our institutions to be involved in Move On When Ready, at the start, only a few chose to do that. Right. And the reason that our institutions are lagging a little bit on Move On When Ready is that it does not make money for our institutions. Our institutions have to dial back and put a little bit of their money in for a Move On When Ready student. What the state pays, and we're thankful for it, we're thankful to be included, but what the state pays doesn't pay the full ride for those number of hours. And the textbook allotment doesn't fully cover the cost. So our institutions that are involved are making a financial commitment. All right, I mentioned partnership, and this is where we get deep into the partnership. GICA institutions are involved in Georgia Awards. That's the statewide student longitudinal data system. That is a very important set of data that is going to provide you and other individuals in state government and departments and agencies a lot of information over the long continuum of a student's career. So for folks like Representative Carter, this is going to be important information to know how students are performing from pre-K all the way through their graduate time in the college system. So we're very proud to be part of that system, but I want you to know that our institutions have to pay to be involved in that. And those that are involved in it are happy to be a part of it because they're getting that data back. All right, Georgia Tracks, as you know, is the statewide transfer portal, and I believe that several of our institutions are involved in that, but there's a cost to our institutions, but many of our institutions choose to be a part of the transfer portal because they want students to understand how that coursework is going to transfer if a student decides to go into USG or TCSG or from those sectors into our institutions. Now, one of the big things that we've done is a hot topic in the General Assembly right now is sexual assault, campus security, and prevention. GICA, with a letter from Governor Deal endorsing our request and our application, received a federal grant from the Health and Human Services Department over 3 years that it creates a wealth of information that is provided to our institutions, to TCSG and to USG with regard to the best state-of-the-art prevention programs for behavior on campus. There was a 2-day seminar that TCSG representatives attended, USG representatives attended last year, all of these schools hit the ground running on this sort of template prevention program because, as you know, students don't stay on their own campus all weekend. They're going to go down the road so they can meet other folks. So we're very proud to be a partner. Now, these articulation agreements that you heard of, we have a 50-course articulation agreement, many of our institutions, with TCSG institutions. That means those students, once they complete their 2-year courses in TCSG, can transfer, the credits for those will transfer to our institutions who are participating. Our articulation agreement with USG is still being considered, and we look forward to the time when that is complete. Now, the TEG. I'm going to read this because you probably can on this, but here's where the rubber meets the road on the tuition equalization grant. Here's a senior from Reinhardt University. The TEG and HOPE are instrumental in helping me accomplish my dream of achieving a higher education. When I graduate, I will be the first in my family. On behalf of us who are working hard to achieve our dreams and make something of ourselves, thank you. And then from Trey Birch, a senior at Toccoa Falls College. My recently widowed mother experienced all the woes of a single income family. Therefore, every dime and penny meant a lot to us. I am thankful for the TEG and how it has helped me. The most effective, Mr. Chairman, the most effective testimony I can give about the TEG is from a student at Young Harris who also was receiving no help from her parents. She worked as a waitress, and she said, "Do you know how many hours I have to work to earn the tips to get a $900 amount to pay toward tuition?" And that's where the TEG plays into this. So, Mr. Chairman, we're back to the students. Our goals and priorities are the same as TCSG and USG, and that's to get these folks through the pipeline as quickly as we can.
Well, Jed, thank you very much. Rick, do you have anything back? Listen, we appreciate everybody's attendance today. We appreciate your attention. I know it was a long meeting today. We wanted to have all the various groups here. We think it's a good way to kick the meeting off. Next week, in the Senate committee, we're going to have, there'll be an initial hearing on the lottery bill. Some of you may find that of interest. And again, I appreciate everybody. I know Chairman Jaspers does too.
And Wednesday, for our committee members, we have Chairman Earhart's bill on sanctuary campuses at 3 o'clock.
And with that, we are adjourned.